Hello everyone and welcome to HealthTech. I'm Dory, the Partner Marketing Lead at Junction, and today I will host HealthTech RPA Robotic Automation Process. And first of all, maybe for those who are new to HealthTech, we are the largest tech meetup in Helsinki, featuring various topics trending in technology on the first Monday of every month. We gather the expert from the industry, startup enthusiast, and the investor to discuss about the trending in the technology in the most relaxing setting. Due to the COVID-19 nowadays, we are organizing the events virtually, but that means you can still interact with us by putting all your questions during our live stream to the box, and I will make sure to ask them all after each of the presentation. Also, a big shout out to our partner digital AutoDigi platform for making HealthTech events happen. Thank you so much. All right, and let's catch up a little bit with what happened last month. So last month was HealthTech Retail Tech. So we have it with the top-notch speakers from its field. The live stream is still available on the Junction YouTube channel, so make sure that you can check them out in your free time as well. Also, don't forget to follow us on all the social media platforms because we're gonna update with all the most trending topic on the technology there. So make sure to check them out on our page as well. All right, now without further ado, let's welcome our first speaker of today, Tommy Holmgren, the Chief Product Officer at Ito.ai. Welcome, Tommy, and now the stage is yours.
Thank you. First of all, the question, my slides are visible, right? Somebody says thumbs up. Yes, I get a thumbs up. Hi everyone. So as mentioned, my name is Tommy Holmgren from Ito.ai. I'm going to talk today about small AI, or what we think is a small AI, and why small AI is big in robotic process automation. First few words about me and the company. I've been in tech industry in software for about 20 years, a bit more than 20 years now. Started off as a database programmer. That was, I think, 1999. And then got involved with product and projects and sales even more during my career. Previously, I founded a company called Capforce in Helsinki. That was 2009, and we sold it to an Irish travel tech company. That was 2015. And now my main task, my daily work is to work for Ito. Ito is a Helsinki-based startup. We are 2.5 years old. We are currently 10 people, and we work on bringing brains to robotic process automation. So basically, we are a machine learning startup, if you would use that kind of a word. I work as a chairman and the chief product officer, and we've been quite lucky within the first years of Ito. We've been able to work with customers like Comcast and IKEA and Posti in Finland already in early stages of our company. So we basically provide the brains for those robots that are called usually covered with the term RPA. And I'm going to walk you through the basics on how do we see the market, what's happening, why do we think the approach of machine learning, there's different ways, big and small, and what are the benefits of a smaller approach, and what are some of the tools and technologies out in the market that might be worth looking at. And I think if you ask many people especially students or younger developers, I must say that not very many are super enthusiastic about RPA in general. It sounds like a bit of a boring kind of a topic in software development. But if there's one thing I want to kind of convince you today is that there's definitely areas in RPA which are super interesting, and there's really interesting problems to be solved with machine learning and RPA together. So let's jump in. Very quick overview. Obviously, I'm the first speaker today, so there hasn't been an overview of RPA, and I'm jumping quite directly into how we use machine learning in RPA. But if you think of a larger a concept of RPA, how many people say or kind of communicate it is that it's execution of some type of repeatable tasks which are performed by a software robot. And very typically, those tasks involve manipulating some type of a user interface, just like a human would. So instead of a human working through the steps of doing something mundane or repeatable, there's a software robot that then does those same things. Like a very simplistic example here, new employee record is entered into a HR system. The robot reads it, combines it with, for example, job contract data. For example, let's say what's the level of salary for the employee, and enters that data set into a payroll system so that the person will be paid. And that can be repeated many times in companies which hire a lot of people and add a lot of these kind of things. So that's like rough overview. We see generally RPA being, like working with larger enterprise customers, we see a lot of the RPA being quite simplistic. Like the name implies that it would be robotic process automation. I would kind of claim that a lot of it is actually robotic task automation. So the tasks that are covered by the software robots are still very narrow. They are not processes yet, but they are more like simple parts of the process or tasks or even workflows. So where is the robotic process automation then good? First of all, one of the key things why RPA has been in a really rapid growth path. I think it was the fastest growing enterprise software area last year and the previous year. The reason would be obviously that it's very available. So no code, low code environments are really good for developers that are not that experienced yet with the complicated platforms. You can deploy at speed, so you can actually implement things really quickly. Within a few weeks of development, you get a lot of things done already. And the enterprise customers can avoid costly IT projects that usually are involved if you want to start altering your large systems that you use for accounting or HR and so forth. And RPA is really good for doing those narrow tasks and working alongside a human who have been previously doing those tasks, and then the human can focus on more kind of a motivating and like a great things. Now then the downside is that the RPA robot is as smart as the rules that are given to it by the human developer. So it means that you actually need to code, like in the traditional RPA, you need to just code every single exception, every single task that you want the robot to perform. And as much as you can give the kind of guidance to the robot, that's how smart your robot will be. But what happens then when you need to get like further in the complexity? Then the traditional RPA, there's kind of a ceiling in what can be achieved. And we've been drawing this kind of a picture of a cost of developing and maintaining your automations versus the complexity of those automations. And when you work with the traditional rule-based approach, where you code every single occurrence of a different event separately, you very soon go kind of beyond what's reasonable in terms of a cost with maintaining rules. And this makes RPA, that's kind of the weak link of the RPA, is the inflexibility that comes with like a rule-based approach. Now obviously you're thinking of what's the solution, and of course then the machine learning has one potential solution for this one, and the market talks about intelligent automation. So when we add a machine learning element that learns something from the robot's behavior and can start automating some of the tasks using learned behaviors, then we are talking about intelligent automation. What it means in many cases is that you don't need to then maintain the rule base that you would otherwise need. So basically you use the machine learning model to take that prediction and use that to continue the execution of the robot. I'll give you a few examples in a bit. But the important thing, and now when we come to the big and small machine learning or AI, is that not all machine learning is equal, and there's very different approaches of applying machine learning, not only in RPA, but I think from the RPA context, it's very obvious. And we've mapped them out in the picture like this. So there's the big machine learning and big AI. You might have read news or articles saying that 85% of AI projects fail. Yes, those might be really, really interesting projects for data scientists, and that's the scientific approach to machine learning, where you do research-focused projects, you do like a big project that take a long time. They might potentially have a huge impact on like solving the complexity. But they're very risky because they're also very expensive. They're very long projects, and we see many companies starting from a wrong angle, like looking into the big, massive PR wins in the beginning instead of starting from a simple and highly efficient small problems that can be solved with machine learning. And this is exactly where we at IDO provide products for our customers. So we work in the box of a high efficiency. Smaller problems can be deployed super fast without involving a data science team into the RPA project. So there's basically three main reasons why we think starting and even staying small makes a lot of sense in the context of RPA. Like first of all, if you utilize tools and products that doesn't need a data scientist to implement the machine learning parts in the RPA project, you don't need to cope with a months-long data science backlog. And this is something that we continuously hear from the market and from the customers, that the moment the RPA leads go into their data science team, the reply is that yes, we can do this, but it takes 6 months or it takes 9 months before we can start. That backlog is massive in many large companies. If you can implement basic machine learning functionalities in the RPA workflows without involving the data science team, you can start right away. And there's an added benefit that when you build with the existing team, so you have the build project of, let's say, implementing an RPA workflow in a 3-week sprint. If you work with those existing developers, use products that can be used by the software engineers, you don't need to include another team into your kind of a way of working. And typically the data science workflow is very different to a software development workflow, and it just slows things down significantly. And then as a last and added benefit, maintaining like a small machine learning infrastructure is way more cost efficient, and the total cost of ownership stays way lower, which means that you can actually unlock the return on investment on smaller use cases. You can take way smaller use cases when you don't need to pay like a massive amount of money for a data science implementation. So you basically can start with small problems and solve them really quickly and nimbly by working with the products that are today available in the market. We've been very fortunate to work with, for example, a Finnish company, Posti, that's the National Logistics Service. Their use case when they started working with ITO was to kind of bring predictive capabilities into their purchase invoice processing. So imagine a previous old way of working where there's a invoice coming and there's some details missing, or they don't know, like you don't know which cost center it belongs to. A human takes an invoice, looks, okay, this looks to be, team XYZ, so let's file it this way. What Posti set out to improve is to way faster be able to file those purchase invoices and process those purchase invoices, and they chose ITO to the predictive part. So in this case, essentially, ITO gives prediction of 4 different data points, including the cost center and VAT category and such details. And basically then, if those can be predicted, the invoice is automatically handled. If they can't be predicted, then a human still checks the invoice. But that's only one part of the whole offering, and like why Posti found this intriguing way of working, and the important part, I believe, is in bringing a new capability for this kind of RPA team. So RPA developers are now capable of doing way more by themselves. They can implement much more complex use cases just with the team that they already have at hand, without jumping out of their box and finding other people to join their team. So then kind of going a bit more in detail, like how does it then look like? When talking about adding predictive capabilities into robotic process workflows, I don't know how many of you have been using some platforms. There are quite a bit of them out in the market, and I believe that my fellow speaker, who's last in line, will talk about Automation Anywhere platform and show maybe some of the ideas on how to use that one. I'm just showing a very simplistic example to illustrate what I mean by very simply embedding predictive capabilities into workflows. And this is like the essence of simpliness is that when you have the workflow, like you see in a UI path in this case, the predictions need to be made so easy that it's one component that you can drop into the workflow. In this case, we predict a type of I think it's a customer support ticket in a workflow. So it just says ITO predict type, and everything happens using the ITO's APIs on the background. But from the user's perspective, it's just a singular component on a workflow. And as of like today, ITO works with, or our customers use ITO from UiPath, they use from Blue Prism, Robot Framework, and so forth. So there's multiple platforms that you can use as a RPA developer and still leverage these same predictions in terms of making more intelligent robots. In general, we always kind of guide our customers to consider two different scenarios when they start building the intelligent workflow. So first of all, there's the maintenance of the training data. So ITO, of course, also like any other machine learning needs some type of a training data in order to make the predictions. So you basically need to cover the step of adding more data points into the machine learning platform, and then there's a second component which is making these predictions, like we see here on the example. And we are definitely not alone. So I've been, of course, using ITO as an example because I work for ITO, but there's definitely other APIs worth checking out. So AWS has really good set of API-based machine learning components like comprehend, extract, transcribe, and forecast. Google Cloud Platform has a couple of really good APIs to use, like Document AI API and Form Parsers, which are really critical components for getting like an intelligent machine learning workflow implemented. Azure has a machine learning studio, which is like a no-code, low-code environment for making the machine learning models. And then there's ITO, so support the local. I'm still, because you saw now ITO on the same slide with Azure and all those other big platforms. So what we typically get asked from the users is like, so how are you different, or what do you do differently at ITO, and why can we power such an easy way of doing machine learning? Our whole philosophy is that we are transforming the machine learning to be from being model driven to be query driven. So if you know databases, you do database queries like with the SQL or some other language, query language. You send a query to a system and you get back an answer. We are changing the machine learning to be functioning the exact same way. So essentially, we are replacing the green parts of this workflow that's on the left side of your screen. So from feature engineering to model training, evaluation, tuning, productionizing, and deploying. So we basically run that in a cloud. And with our innovation, we can do that with a query. And here you can see the example ITO query that basically predicts a general ledger code in a invoice. So this is very similar, like a simplistic example of what Posti is doing for real in a production environment. But with the simple query, having the dataset in the ITO's cloud, you can make these predictions with queries, and that basically transforms like kind of a mystic machine learning into a very simple way of drawing the prediction, getting the probability, and then using it in your workflow, or ditching it if it's not good enough as a prediction. So this is the model that we kind of promote, and how we think a lot of the machine learning to solve small problems in RPA will be done continuously. So it's API driven, simple queries, and getting rid of the massive amount of work that comes with feature engineering, and especially then keeping those models up to date and retraining and deploying them. When the RPA team is added with this capability. So the RPA team has now capability of getting beyond the simple rules or if-else logic. They start to see the use cases everywhere, and the use case or the element of intelligence or element of prediction doesn't need to be big in the use case, but there will be a lot of use cases that kind of unlocked when you can implement the machine learning part really quickly and nimbly, and you don't need to kind of stop because this is too complex, but you can continue with the use cases. Just some ideas what we are working on at the moment with our customers, but there's a lot of like interesting things that can be done. For example, we can for a consulting customer whose whole business runs on how much they charge from their customers, we can predict anomalies and see if they are missing out on hours in projects and so forth. So we can actually optimize their revenue and profit quite well. That's about what I had to say. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Tommy, for a very interesting and informative presentation about the RPA. It looks like a crash course for anyone who is new to RPA, for me, for example. All right.
Thank you.
And I have a question for you. Mm-hmm. So as you are working in ITO, mm-hmm. and you know everything about this RPA and what's happening in ITO, mm-hmm. so what is next for ITO?
What is next for ITO? We are growing. I think that's the big thing. Of course, we have like. We basically just came out with the product quite recently. Yep. So Posti is our first big name Finnish customer using ITO for their robotic process automation, and of course we are looking for working with multiple other customers in Finland and in other markets.
Yes.
And of course then at the same time we are building the product for the next evolution of it. So I don't think we will stay only in the RPA space, but this is very good, like a stepping stone for us in a way that we know that we have a product that can cover use cases in this domain really well and right at this moment. Yes. So we'll focus on that for a while and then see what the future brings.
Yeah, great. And also your answer has also influenced me to ask you another question.
Go ahead.
Then, like as you say, that RPA has a lot of potential to go, and also ITO is on the way to growing the RPA even more. So, how do you predict this RPA journey? So, where is RPA right now in this long journey?
Yeah. That's a really good question. I think we will get also let's first say that I'm not an RPA expert. I think I'm more in the machine learning side than an RPA. Yeah. But now seeing having been looking at the market for a while, I think the current trend of using the platforms like Automation Anywhere, UiPath, and like a low code, no code, that's obviously one stream that will continue. Microsoft is investing a lot in RPA. Oracle is investing in RPA. I think like a lot of the large companies are currently bringing their tools for making simple automations with low and no code. But I see and what I find really interesting is what's happening now with the open source world and like more code-based automation. There's, for example, Robot Framework from Finland, and a RoboCorp as a company who's just launching their platform at the moment, which is a Python code-based automation. And that kind of, for me, that's way more native way of actually implementing the automations when you can work against the APIs and just make those automations with code. So I think that's something that I'm looking at kind of all the time, that when does it grow enough? And I think the big impact will be that those open source products will bring RPA available to smaller companies. So the cost is no longer an issue. So smaller and smaller companies, like mid-sized companies, will benefit out of automation when it doesn't cost so much.
I really like your perspective. Thank you for that, and thank you, Tommy, again. Also, to all of you who are watching, don't be shy. Please put your question in the YouTube channel chat box, and I will make sure to ask them all to our speaker today. Okay, and I will not waste any single moment of us anymore. Let's welcome the next speaker to the stage, Esko Penttinen, the Professor of Practice in Information System from Aalto University.
Can you see the slides? No. Okay. All good? Still all good? Okay, good. Just start my timer. So, good afternoon. Thank you for this invitation to share our research results on a specific study on robotic process automation. I'm from Aalto University School of Business. I'm also the chairman and co-founder of XBRL Finland and also the director of Real-Time Economic Competence Center, which is a fintech competence center that has grown into this kind of national development program recognized by the state as well. Here today I'm speaking in the role of a researcher. All researchers, every single researcher has their own unique way of approaching research. My approach to research is heavily based on empirical data. So I'm constantly hunting for interesting data sets that we can turn into academic studies. And that's why I interact a lot with companies and try to understand their challenges and problematize those into academic papers. I'm very much interested in coordination of work between machines and humans. We do a lot of work on machine learning, how to organizationally implement machine learning so that you get the benefits from these algorithms and avoid the potential pitfalls of machine learning in based decision making, for example, in organizations. We've been following robotic process automation for a while, as was introduced by Tommy. So it's been adopted by organizations of different sizes, and we are quite interested in understanding the sort of organizational implementation of these software robots. And in this specific study, we were actually interested in understanding robotic process automation from the perspective of organizational information privacy practices. So as Tommy was saying, software robots are being introduced in processes, or rather actually tasks of various sorts in organizations of different sizes. And we were actually wondering, so what does this mean from a perspective of information privacy? So in this specific research paper, we focus on an organizational implementation of robotic process automation to a task where sensitive employee data needs to be handled. So we're talking about security, social security numbers, salary information, and those kinds of data that in a human mode would need a clearance to be actually sort of to be operated on. So in this paper, we basically report the development of a software robot to this kind of process where sensitive data needs to be handled. It's an ADR study, so those of you who are researchers, you might know that ADR refers to action design research. So we had one person from the research team actually working in the company was actually responsible for developing the software robot at this fairly large organization. It's a Finnish publicly listed company that implemented UiPath for the process of producing EU posted worker notifications. So EU actually mandates all European companies to report to the EU whenever you have employees going from one European country to another one. So in this case, for example, this publicly listed company is mandated to report workers shifting from one EU country to another one. And it's a quite heavy regulatory burden for companies, and many organizations are actually implementing robotic process automation for this task to be able to automate this production of these reports to the European Union. Let's see how much of this was actually covered already by Tommy. So in the paper, we introduced, of course, robotic process automation, and we were sort of fascinated by the fact that it's penetrating a wide variety of business processes. And RPA, from a research perspective, is this kind of lightweight technology. So it emulates the human worker's actions and typically operates on graphical user interfaces or through these APIs that Tommy was mentioning. RPA is very often non-invasive. So it doesn't require modifications into the backend system. So it's this kind of lightweight IT technology. Business processes amenable to RPA are high volume, human error prone, operated in stable environments, exhibiting low cognitive requirements. And of course, there's system providers such as UiPath, Blue Prism. However, open source is increasingly popular. And RPA is claimed to be this kind of process optimization on steroids. There's quite a bit of academic literature already accumulating on the topic of robotic process automation, but now that software robots are being implemented in a variety of contexts, so what was interesting to us from a research perspective was to increase our understanding in how robotic process automation can be implemented to this kind of process where sensitive data needs to be handled by RPA. And this further motivation for the study was this EU posted worker notifications that pose quite a bit of administrative burden on organizations to be able to produce these regulatory reports whenever employees are transiting from one country to another. For a very, very simple research question we had in the paper, so how can you configure a software robot to this kind of work process or work task that involves processing of sensitive data? So as a research paper, of course, we need to define what privacy means. So privacy as a concept is a multidimensional concept. So it's sort of, you can find different levels of privacy. So individual level, organizational level, it's a cultural issue. So privacy depends on is different in different cultures, and it's evolving by nature. So it was actually interesting to note that if you think about privacy as a concept, it evolves over time. So when you transit through your life, privacy for a child is quite different from what privacy means to an adult. And actually the concept of privacy only appears to a child when they are left alone to think about that they are actually being able to do something in private. And there are many different approaches to define privacy. So it's the value-based definition, which views privacy as this kind of human right, holding potentially transactional value for the individual. So there's this My Data movement, so that resonates with that. And then there's this cognate-based definition that treats privacy as a state, which is contextual and situational and can be controlled by the individual. There's quite a bit of literature on organizational information privacy practices, which are these policies and frameworks enacted by organizations to keep their information secure and private. And we think that these organizational information privacy practices are interesting in this era where we're shifting to this kind of loosely coupled information systems, and robotic process automation is one instantiation of these loosely coupled information systems. But in the literature, while there's quite a bit of literature on organizational information practices, there's actually not that much research which would articulate how you actually set up these organizational information security privacy practices. There's privacy by design, which sort of maintains that from the design perspective, information systems should be designed taking into account these privacy issues so that they would be proactive. Privacy would be default. It would be embedded in design with full functionality, and it would be transparent, so this kind of accountability and verification of systems would be in place. Similarly, fair information practices, they talk about notice, choice, and access. So individuals must be able to access and modify their own data. The data needs to be secure and with a high level of integrity. And privacy needs to be enforced. So if you have a information security breach, those sanctions must be imposed. And it's interesting to note that from the ICT perspective, ICT has this kind of dual role. So in a way, it enables real-time, easy access to information, so potentially enabling more effective privacy intrusion. But on the other hand, it enables encrypting personal information. So ICT can be used to keep information private, but on the other hand, it actually also gives this kind of easy access to information. So in the empirical study, what we did was that we did this kind of action design research where we looked at one single fairly large organization that wanted to implement a software robot for this kind of process where information privacy issues would be potentially arising. And we studied how this organization was able to implement a software robot for this specific process. So in action design research, what you do is that you proceed to these interventions. So we had a practitioner team that was actually implementing the software robot at the organization. We had a research team with us, the authors, so researchers that were writing the research article. And then we had the end user team, which consisted of these NCorp employees. And in the paper, what we do is that we actually describe how these interventions was done. So how the software robot was developed in the organization through these cycles of intervention that was done. And many of these cycles, or actually all of the cycles that we report in the paper, were actually about strategies that the organization was implementing in order to keep the information that the software robot was processing private and secure. So what happens from a human operator's perspective is that whenever this kind of trip arises, this was a engineering company, so the organization actually had quite a lot of engineers going from one EU country to another to work on. And these European regulation reports mandated that each of these trips would be reported to the European Union. So what happened was that each of these trips triggered one reporting instantiation, and then the software robot would go and fetch this information from these three information systems that the organization had in place. So there was a CRM system, an SAP system, and then the SAP HR system where information needed to be collected. So they created the first version of the software robot. There would be this trigger for the software robot, which would come through this email, and this software robot would go into these three systems. It would fetch around 30 pieces of information from the CRM system, around 10 pieces of information from the SAP system, and around 15 pieces of information from the SAP HR system. And then it would feed back this information to the trigger for the employee that needs to make this report. But there were some challenges identified. So the developers felt that The HR data that consisted of this sensitive data would need to be handled in a separate environment. And also it was found problematic that anybody who knows the email address of the software robot could actually trigger it by sending it a CRM ID. So the first intervention that the developers actually made was that they created two software robots. So they split this software robot into two separate robots, so two separate environments. The first one was handling this CRM data and this SAP data, and then the second one was handling the SAP HR data, which was more sensitive data. And it also, they developed a verification process for the email. So they had to create this kind of whitelist of emails that was sort of permitted to trigger the software robot, the first software robot. So they did basically two interventions in the first one. So they split the environment into two separate software robots, and they initiated this email clearance system. So basically a whitelisting of permitted emails that can trigger the robot. And there were further challenges identified. So there was efficiency issues. So the software robot required 3 minutes to operate, and that was felt by the developers to be a too long process. And the database security issues emerged as well. So in the first version of the robot, they were actually storing information in Excel files. And the developers felt that from this kind of privacy perspective, these Excel files were problematic, posing this kind of security threats. So they did a beta version of the software robot, which basically was simply an introduction of databases instead of Excel files. So they removed the Excel files from the software robot architecture and implemented databases where this information would be stored, so that after the software robot has finished its operations, it's relatively easy to clear the data from those tables. So they had two separate tables in the database. So one database for the CRM and SAP company data, and then a separate table for this CRM HR data. And then further challenges were identified. So the developers felt that, okay, now that we've got rid of these Excel files, we need to further enhance the control and monitoring and auditing to the access of the data. So they did a final intervention where they actually created audit trail for both environments. So for the both robots, so the first robot and the second robot, it was decided that an audit trail would be established, so that whenever the software robot was operating, it would actually give this kind of audit trail of its activities into a separate file. So through these three interventions that the company did, we were able to articulate certain design principles in our paper. So first of all, we recommend that organizations, when they want to implement and deploy software robots in a sort of safe manner from the perspective of information privacy, they would make architecture choices that would allow these kinds of separated environments for software robots. And we felt that this kind of removal of temporary software robot generated data was important in the case. The second one was that we felt that it was interesting to know that they were very anxious about who can trigger the robot. So the trigger was through an email, but they felt that this email was sort of insecure from the perspective of information privacy, and they decided to create this kind of whitelisting of permitted emails that can actually trigger the software robot. And then finally, developers should understand that they might need to create this kind of strict audit trail to allow tracing and review of the software robot actions. So in this case, it was decided to get rid of the Excel files. When they got rid of these Excel files and decided to move to these databases that would be cleared after the report was done, it was felt that a sort of separate audit trail process would be in place to allow this kind of tracking and review of the actions done by the software robot. So this was basically the paper. It's in a very exciting phase. It's being reviewed in a academic journal, the highest U43 level journal, and we just got a revise and resubmit verdict from that paper. So those of you who are researchers, you understand that now the sort of revision work starts. So we're seeking for comments and recommendations on how to improve the paper. Unfortunately, the paper is in a delicate phase now, so we cannot share the paper because it's in this review process. But if you have any sort of ideas on how to improve, we would be more than happy to hear those recommendations. And if you have any questions to the case, I can respond to those as well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Esko, for a very thorough presentation. And may I ask you, what are the reasons that motivates you to do this research paper?
As I said in the beginning, we're always sort of hunting for interesting, rich empirical data and empirical settings. So we found that from a research perspective, this is an interesting case to study because I don't know if anyone else has looked into this from the perspective of security. So organizations very often they implement information systems without maybe thinking of all the aspects that are associated with these implementations. So there's always a certain level of risk associated with any kind of implementation of information systems. And we feel that in the sort of RPA case, it being this kind of lightweight IT, as I understand, some organizations are even implementing those software robots sort of bypassing the IT function. So it's the business unit implementing those. So if you're bypassing IT from a research perspective, it opens the door for these kinds of interesting risks that might arise from implementing these kinds of systems. So we felt that it's an interesting case, and research community is always interested in.
Do you think that there are many researchers out there who are also doing research on the RPA as well?
There are many. It's a very hot topic in the research community. So there are a lot of researchers trying to understand how RPA is being implemented. Tommy touched upon a little bit about the criteria, how you select business processes or tasks suitable for RPA. So that's a topic that is sort of very much looked into by researchers.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Esko, for the presentation.
Thanks.
And that was a very thorough research from Esko. Also, as I need to remind you again who are watching, don't be shy, put your question into the comment box on the YouTube channels, and I will make sure to ask them all to our speakers. All right, now let's come to the final session of today. And we are very gladly to have our speaker join all the way from India. Let's welcome Arjun Media. So he is the Senior RPA Evangelist from Automation Anywhere. Hello, Arjun.
Hi, Dory. Can you hear me? Dory, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear. Now the stage is yours.
Okay, thanks a lot. Let me share my screen, and if you could confirm if my screen is visible, then I'll start with my presentation.
Yes.
Okay, I have shared my screen. Is it visible now?
Not yet. Can you try again?
Okay.
Yes? All right. Good to go now, Arjun.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks everyone for joining this session, and thank you HealthTech for giving me an opportunity to speak at this forum. So I'll just briefly introduce myself and the topic I'm going to talk about. As Dory already introduced, I am a senior developer evangelist with Automation Anywhere. I come with 14 years of experience, and I worked with global clients and mainly looking at how they can digitally transform themselves. So my today's topic is RPA, an accelerator in your digital transformation journey. We have already listened to both the speakers, Tommy and Esko, speak about what RPA is all about and what RPA can do. So now let's look at what is digital transformation and how RPA can accelerate. So for today's agenda, I'm going to cover 3 topics. The first one is about how do you enable the end users to run RPA bots from their favorite applications? Because we have already seen how RPA market has been maturing. So we know how to execute bots directly from the platforms. But now let's give an opportunity for the end users to run it from their applications without even switching over to the platform. And the second one is about integrating the RPA and AI to automate end-to-end business processes. And the third one is about how do you identify processes to be automated in a better fashion. And at the end, if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to take them. So first, let's look at what is digital transformation. So as per Gartner, digital transformation can refer to anything from IT modernization, for example, cloud computing, to digital optimization, or even to the invention of new digital business models. It's more like digital business transformation is what we are looking at. And now we will look at how RPA can accelerate this journey, because as we know that digitally born companies have an edge over the traditional companies because of the kind of IT systems they have in place and how quickly they can process their transactions and respond to customers. So that's where we want to utilize RPA to help organizations digitally transform themselves. So let's look at the 3 levers. The first lever is about enabling end users to run RPA bots from their favorite applications. So this is where we have an Automation Anywhere productivity pack, which is designed to accelerate RPA adoption by making RPA bots available from your standard systems. Let's take like 3 examples, and I'm going to give you demos for all 3 of them so that you understand how it works. The first application is from Salesforce. How can you run your bots? And next, we also have similar productivity pack, which runs out of Microsoft Excel and the Google Sheets. Let's look at an example from Salesforce. So this is the Salesforce App Exchange, in which you have the Automation Anywhere connector available to work with Salesforce. Again, the URL is as shown in the screen, appexchange.salesforce.com. Just look for Automation Anywhere RPA bots for Salesforce. Now let's look at what is the kind of use case we are looking at. Why are we even looking at an tool which helps you run out of the Salesforce? Let's take a use case. The customer needs to replace their laptop battery. This looks like a very simple example, right? So why is this so complicated and why does it need so many tools to do it? Now let's look at what are the steps involved in this entire workflow. As you can see, first, in the Salesforce platform, you have to confirm the warranty validity of that particular laptop battery. And then you have to check the inventory, which is again based on Oracle NetSuite application, and then inform the warehousing. And then there is a third-party application called ShipStation, where you're going to inform the shipping and generate the shipping labels. And then you come back to the Salesforce platform and email the customer with a return shipping label, generate a report, and close the case. So now it looks like a little more complex, right? So that's where, as an end user who only knows how to work on a Salesforce platform, we can make his life easy to run the Automation Anywhere bots right from the Salesforce platform. Let's look at the demo. So this is where the Automation Anywhere Salesforce connector is designed to work with Enterprise A2019. That's our cloud native platform. So I'm going to show you how the connector looks like, how it is configured, and how to use this. First, we will look at how to configure. The admin is going to log into the Salesforce platform and then establish a connection between Salesforce and Automation Anywhere. That's where he has first selected the Automation Anywhere connector, and now he is establishing a connection between the Automation Anywhere platform and the Salesforce. He's going to enter his username, password, and then this is the control room URL for the Automation Anywhere. And then you can choose any deployment type, whether it's cloud or on-premise, and then authorize the transaction. And now you should see the status as connected. That means the connection between Salesforce and Automation Anywhere is established now. Now let's look at the bot configurations. So these are the different bots which are already configured. Now let's look at how to configure a new one. So just click on the new and give it a name for your bot configuration, and then this will fetch you the bots which are available for that particular user. This is again all controlled by the role-based access control. So only the bots which are accessible to certain number of users, certain set of users, that's what can be controlled here. Now we are going to choose this as battery replacement. And then you see these options as execution mode, both manual and automatic are available. Manual means you are going to, as a Salesforce user, you are going to kick off the bot right from the Salesforce platform, but in a manual fashion. Whereas the other option is automatic, where you can have the Automation Anywhere bot configured as part of the process builder itself. Now let's look at the first option, the manual mode. So we'll just select the manual mode and then click on next. And now this is where you're going to connect the Salesforce objects. It can be anything like accounts, case, opportunity. We are going to select the case here and then do the mapping between the Salesforce and Automation Anywhere so that you can pass the data from Salesforce to Automation Anywhere bots and also get the data back from Automation Anywhere to Salesforce platform. This is where you can see we have just configured 2 parameters. And now the entire configuration is ready. And now let me show you how the bot looks like. As you can see, this is the Enterprise A2019 platform, and it's a low-code platform where you can use the drag and drop functionalities to build. However, if you are a power user or a power developer and you are comfortable with programming languages, as you can see here, you can call any of the programming languages like Python, JavaScript, VB or you can even write your own commands, which are available on the left side screen here. You can write them using Java as well. So here we are just going to use this Python language to update the case owner. Now let's see how the bot works. Now the Salesforce user has just logged into the Salesforce platform, and he will go and look at the cases which are assigned to him. Currently he's in the home screen. He's going to the cases and he can see there are a couple of cases which are assigned to him, and he will go and process the first one. That is the laptop battery not holding the charge. Let's see how he does that. Select that case, and now on the right side you can see that the bots are loading, which will work from the case object. As you can see here, there are different number of bots which are available, and you can also see the history of them if they are already run for a different case. And now the user is going to kick off the bot by clicking on run. And now the bot starts executing. Here for the demo purpose, it is executing in the same machine. That's where on the bottom right screen, you can see that the bot is executing. Otherwise, these can be executed in a remote machine, and then the status and the data will come back straight to the Salesforce platform. And now that once the bot has executed its steps in the background, it has generated, it is showing you the case number, owner, the dispatch number, everything. And now this bot has completed the execution. So this is how a Salesforce end user who has no knowledge on how the Automation Anywhere platform works can still use the RPA bots. Now let's look at the second lever, that is integrating RPA and AI to automate end-to-end business processes. We already spoke about, we have seen how AI and ML algorithms work from what Tommy explained. So now let's see how these are integrated so that your end-to-end business processes are automated. Let's look at a use case, that is insurance claim fraud detection with ML and AI models. First, you're going to receive, as a service department who has to process all these insurance claims, you're first going to receive the first notice of loss in an email. It can contain the claim forms in PDF documentation, which has come through the emails. And then first we're going to digitize that claim. If it is written in a hand note or even if it's a scanned document, that's where our IQ bot, the intelligent document processing platform, comes into place, which is going to digitize your document. That means it extracts the text from specific fields, which we want to pass it to the AI model for detecting the fraud score. And then we have to, it has to be triaged and assigned based on whatever is the outcome. It will either be assigned to a special investigation unit if it's required, or if it needs any kind of claim teams review, or if there is nothing to be checked on it, it will be straightforward, approved and paid. Now let's see how this looks like in Automation Anywhere Enterprise A2019 platform, which is connected with the AI and ML algorithms. So now, as you can see, in this bot, first we are starting with the IQ bot, where we are going to upload the documents which will be read from an email so that the information can be passed to the ML algorithms. So as you can see, it's very simple to use the drag and drop functionalities from the left side action panel. And this is where the IQ bot is going to extract different information required from the documents which are received through the email, and it's going to update a CSV file. So as you can see, the bot is picking up the information from the claims form and loading it to the CSV file. And next, once that is done, this is where we are going to integrate it with the third-party AI systems, which can be anything like Amazon AWS services, it can be Google Cloud, Azure ML services. As you can see in the screen now, you can integrate it with, these are just a few examples: computer vision, natural language processing, and predictive modeling. And again, these actions are not everything is part of the inbuilt product itself. You can build these action packages by yourself and then load it to the control room. Some of them are also available on the bot store. That's again the world's largest marketplace for you to use the pre-built intelligent automation solutions. Now we're just going to drag and drop the Azure computer vision. So this is where it's going to analyze the image and estimate the damage and give us an estimated value for the damage. And then we are using the fraud detection AI algorithms such as like data robot. There are multiple options which you can use to get the fraud score. And based on the score, you can decide if you want to approve it directly, or if you want to send it to investigation team, or if you just want to send it to the normal claims processing, if there are any other conditions to be validated. So this is how you can look at how you can integrate RPA and the AI and ML algorithms in such a way that the end-to-end business process can be automated. Now, we have seen how you can integrate RPA and AI, and even before that, scaling the RPA programs such that the end users can run the bots directly from the platform of choice. But in the phase one, you would have identified certain number of processes which are manual so that they are worthy of automation. But once you are done with your automation pipeline, sometimes it takes, not sometimes, a lot of times it takes a good amount of time to identify a process to ensure if it is automation worthy. So that's where we have the next process which we are going to show you on how do you even identify the processes to be automated. Now let's look at the automatic process discovery. It can also be called as task mining. This is a technique to uncover business processes by recording user interactions with various systems. It can include any enterprise solutions like ERP, CRM, BPM, etc., or personal productivity applications such as Excel, Outlook, and even terminal and virtual environments. And now you can compare this to the process mining that just reconstructs the processes using the data from event logs generated by enterprise solutions. So instead of this, the process discovery, it records the necessary data such as mouse movements, clicks for identifying RPA processes and automatic creation of bots. This is where it gets easy for a program manager to look at various processes which are currently being handled manually by all his team members, look at potential opportunities, and there is also an option to build the bots automatically. So that's where we bring in a solution called Discovery Bot. So in this entire process, these are the 6 steps involved. First is to capture. So the bot has to capture all the process steps involved from different stakeholders, in the sense like different process, the folks who process these transactions, so that you can analyze how many of these steps are repetitive, what are the different variations which the people process, so that way you know which steps have to be automated, which steps requires a little of cognitive thinking, and which steps, if at all, if it has to remain manual. So, and then you can visualize the process flow all at one screen to see how the particular transaction is completed end to end. And then based on the different workflows populated from different process folks, you can identify the automation opportunities, and then you can also provide what is the amount of effort you are putting in and what's the ROI which can be achieved if a particular process is automated. And then by clicking just one button, it will identify all the steps, and then it will create the bot, which of course you can review. And then if you want to make any modifications, you can review, modify, you can optimize them and configure according to your needs to run in specific environments, and then you can deploy it centrally from the control room. Now let's look at how the Automation Anywhere's Discovery Bot works. In this, we are going to look at an use case where the rejected invoices collection process. That means there are a couple of invoices which are rejected, and how can we speed up the collection process is what we are going to look at now. So here, as I mentioned earlier, there were a couple of invoices which were rejected, and now we want to understand if there is an option to speed up the collections. How is the collection process working manually now, and how can we create a bot? And if it is worthy of automation based on the ROI which we can achieve if this process is automated. Now let's look at the different steps. So this is where we have Terrell, who is a process analyst, and he invites a couple of users to start this discovery process. That means he wants to know how different people are performing this collection process manually. So that's where this is how the discovery bot interface looks like. And Terrell is starting the discovery process, and he sends out an email. In this case, as you can see, he is inviting 12 users to record their processes. The way they process it manually, he wants to understand how it is done and what are the different steps involved. Now he's going to send out this email to all of the 12 users. And then, as you can see, now Rose is on the billing team who normally performs this manually, and she gets an email saying, like, can you record this process and send back the steps? And again, this platform is totally running on the cloud. So that way it's just running on your browser, and all you have is just a bot agent which is running in your system to establish the connection between the control room and the local system. And now Rose records her activities by clicking on the start recording button. Now we can see that the entire process is getting recorded. First, she has a invoicing question who has requested for a proof of delivery so that they can schedule the payment. Now let's see what are the next steps Rose takes. First, she logs into the Salesforce platform, and then she's going to look at a particular opportunity, and then she will extract the proof of delivery from the Salesforce application. As you can see, the document is downloaded now, and then she's going to attach it to the email saying here is a copy of the delivery, so that they can go ahead and process the payment. So she's just typing in the text to be sent out to the user while all the steps are getting recorded in the background. And now she just replied back to the recipient. And now she can also add the description for different steps on what did she perform at each of the step, so that Terrell, when he gets it back, he understands what Rose did while performing each of the step. And now, as you can see, Terrell is going to get it back, all the different recordings from different users, and he can see every statistics and how many users have responded to him, all in a simple dashboard. Now he's going to look at different statistics and an aggregated view of what are the different steps the user has taken, all the screenshots and also the steps which the Rose described is all captured here, as you can see them. And because he's getting the details from multiple users, he also has an option to compare between how are the people taking different steps, if at all, if there is any, and then he can select which are the different steps he want the bot to be created. So he's basically identifying an optimum process workflow. And then this is where he's going to add an opportunity name, average cost estimate, and the potential saving if the process is automated. He's going to add it to the list of opportunities. And here comes Bruce, the RPA manager, who is going to analyze his automation pipeline. From the process analyst Terrell, he understands which are the different processes to be automated, what is the ROI he can expect. Now he also has an option to look at this process, and he just clicked on a button, create the bot, and now he is looking at the entire bot which is built by the discovery bot itself. And then if you want to make any changes, you can do this. So he's currently just reviewing, and there are different views. The first one was the flow view, which is a flowchart view, and then the list view, which kind of shows it how the programmers like. So this is how we were able to identify different processes to be automated, all in a automated fashion. So that's the power of how you can use Discovery Bot to strengthen your automation pipeline. I've spoken a lot about what you can do in a quick span of time. If you're interested to learn more about Automation Anywhere platform, how you can build these bots, we have a great set of learning resources. We have divided them into 4 sections: learn, build, engage, and earn. Learn is all about, first you can learn in our Automation Anywhere University platform. There are different learning trails, certifications available for you to take. And then we also give you a community edition totally free of cost for you to try out the platform to build bots. And it does come with like different digital workforce components. There are APIs and SDKs also if you want to build your own custom action packages and then deploy it to the control room. And we also have a very active platform for engaging along with other Automation Anywhere users. That's called A People Community. We organize a lot of developer conferences, meetups. Feel free to join them. And there is also an opportunity for you to earn. That is, you can monetize your skills on Bot Store. And for you, the single point of contact is developer.automationanywhere.com. That's our developer portal where you can access all the resources which are listed here. And this is how the developer portal looks like. Again, the URL is as shown on the screen now, developer.automationanywhere.com. There are different sections to learn, build, engage, and earn. Also, as I spoke about an earning opportunity, this is where you can head on to our bot store. That's the marketplace available where you can upload your bots and you can sell your bots to all the Automation Anywhere customers too. So that's an opportunity you have. And there are a lot of free bots as well as paid bots. You can see these are, as this is a marketplace, there are different players who automate certain processes and upload them onto the bot store. So as you can see, there are a couple of bots from Automation Anywhere. There are other companies like Bristlecone, DuQuant, and Parametrics. Like this, you can also create your own vendor profile and upload your bots onto the bot store. And I'm now open for any questions. Here is my email ID. I'm pretty active on the LinkedIn. Because I'm at the limit of connections which I can accept in LinkedIn, feel free to follow me. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me on Twitter as well.
All right. Thank you, Arjun, for a very interesting presentation. Also, here I have a few questions for you as well. So are you ready for these questions?
Sure. Yes, please go for it.
So as there are a lot of in our audience who comes from the non-technology backgrounds, they might have a little bit of confusion. So there's this big bubbles of machine learning, artificial intelligence, RPA, and others thing as well. So can you maybe clarify a little bit so where RPA stand in this big bubble?
Sure. We are actually in a very interesting phase, and already we see that RPA platforms have matured and even the customers have started implementing interesting projects which integrates with ML and AI algorithms. So the way we look at it is like RPA, you can have it as a core program, and then you can connect all your ML and AI algorithms to RPA platform such that it forms the end-to-end processing. So and it's a very, very interesting stage. And I would highly recommend you to take a look at different reports published by analysts like Gartner, Forrester. You can read about how RPA is impacting different businesses. So that way you'll get a lot of insights on how this technology is evolving.
Cool, thank you. And also from all of your case there, it's clear that RPA is going milestones in the service industry where repetitive human tasks is conducted. So in your opinion, what are the other fields or industry that RPA are going to step in soon or will be a very crucial role?
Sure, definitely. So the forefront leaders are insurance and banking industries, but then all the other businesses are also catching up with RPA because the entry barrier is pretty low. You can start learning and quickly implementing your bots. And also, customers have seen success in RPA programs. And because this is non invasive technology, RPA can work with pretty much any domain and any business. So the possibility is like limitless.
Thank you. It sounds very amazing. Do you think, is there any downside to RPA?
I don't think there is any downsides to RPA, but there are some kind of discussions which happen saying like if we are looking at everything being automated, how are the job markets going to look like? But to give you a perspective, this RPA is not about taking away the jobs. It's all about giving more opportunities for humans to come out as better humans so that they can employ their critical thinking and critical customer centric roles so that they can enhance their work profile and live a life which they can feel that yes, they're using their full potential instead of just working on some mundane and repetitive tasks.
Yes, right. I share with you the same opinion. So it's not the losing of the personnel, but it's just the shift from one place to another place, right? All right.
Exactly. It's very similar to how any industrial revolution happened. It looks like there might be some changes. What that means is it's just a shift in the kind of jobs which are available. And as long as you are upskilled, there are good amount of opportunities for you to take and progress in your career.
All right. Okay, thank you, Arjun, again for a very interesting presentation.
Okay, thanks a lot, Dory, and thanks a lot, participants, for listening to me. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me at arjun.meda@automationanywhere.com. Thank you, and go be great.
Thanks. And I guess that is the end of today. Thank you to all the speakers for spending time with us today and inspire us with the knowledge in the RPA trend. So what is next for Health Tech? On the upcoming 2nd of November, the very special edition of Health Tech is happening. So make sure to follow us on all the social media and on our Facebook page as well. We're gonna updating you what is happening and when. All right? Thank you again. I'm Dory from Health Tech and see you in next.